Hello, this is Lisalee and welcome to my channel. So today we are going to be looking at, it's a continuation of the series that I started like yesterday or the day before with the equinox, our new year, where we're going. And right now we're looking at what it means to disempower our fears so they're not in the way. And what Spirit started me with, and I'm just going to actually kind of like do this in a way that is like pulling cards sort of while I'm speaking to you. This is how I do it. When I'm reading for myself. So Spirit is basically saying that, you know, part of what it means to disempower the fear. Okay, let me just keep this going for a second. Okay. So Spirit is saying that, like, you know, what's keeping you from your inheritance, what's keeping you from that stability that you're meant to grow from, is this idea that the fear is really powerful. And here's the thing. So Spirit is saying that, like, you know, it's not just about like disempowering the fear. The fear is literally blocking you from being able to see that what you really want. And what you really want is your true north. You know, desire is that turn signal within. And so not only do we see a problem with like the fear is kind of when you see the Wheel of Fortune and the Nine of Swords, the fear is really blocking the ability to see what is meant for you. And so there's this thing about feeling unstable when Spirit is saying that there's a lot of generosity in the universe meant for you. You're meant to have stability, and you're meant to have this level of like, this is your inheritance, like what's passed down to you, that is generational wealth. And in this instance, it's a lot, it has to do with your giftedness and what you already know in the way of like where you're going to be. Like, you've known for a long time that you are you're meant to create something that's going to, you know, I kind of want to just pull on that. I'm going to pull more on that in a second because I don't want to get off track, because that's interesting when I just saw it come through. But there's this part of you where the flame has gone out. Spirit is showing me like the fire that would be more powerful in the way of motivation than anything that could stop you on the way out the door has gone out. That's essentially what we're looking at in the way of a problem. So, you know, when it comes to risk taking, and risk taking is sort of necessary. You know, we need exposure. Spirit kind of needs us to kind of step outside, or, you know, or move towards our goals when it comes to being able to sort of provide for us along the way, so that we can in fact get what's been coming to us, what's meant to be there for you, quite powerfully meant to be there for you, with without getting in your own way. And so the getting in your own way, this is not condemnation, it's not in any way let's take a look. Let's just like, because there's Spirit saying there's really no such thing as self-sabotage. There's only ways in which you had to protect yourself in the past that show up in the present, and it's just like it's a bad overlay, and it obscures the picture overall. And so there's this way in which, you know, you've been, you know, fight, flight, and freeze. That's the survival cycle, and you've been in some, it's basically just been cycling for you. Fight, like flight, freeze, fight, flight, freeze for kind of a long time. And so part of what it means for you to be released from this fear is like, there's a lot of fear in your body. Like there's that aspect of it that's somatic work, like yin yoga. There's others, just like I would Google, I don't really know, this is just what's coming through. I would Google like somatic therapy and see what shows up. And again, tarot readings are no substitute for mental health, but I do think that spirituality is a nice addition to your mental health practices, because I think it's really good for you. But with the Five of Swords and the Queen of Wands, the way in which fight has been stuck in your body in one way or another, there's hypervigilance that I'm feeling here. You know, the Spirit is saying like there's this call for you to, and I'm being shown somebody like dancing and like shaking it out, to dance like a 2-year-old, about like just to do this as like a regular practice, like in the way that you might like normally like be drawn to journaling. Spirit says I want you to like still journal, because journaling is really good for you, but because so much of this stuff is just stuck in the body, like really like dancing like a 2-year-old around your house or in your room, fully is going to go a long way towards helping you release some of that fight that's kind of like, it's less in the head than it is in the body, and it like flares up in the body, and then your brain is trying to catch up. So a lot of times, like, there are scripts that run around like making meaning of all this energy, this anxiety, and this fear in your body, that the fear's in the body, and then you look to the external stuff to try and figure out, well, it's because of this, it's because of that, it's because of this, it's because of that. So to disempower some of what it means to be in a world that feels like it's always attacking you, is to first understand that some of it's from inside out. Some of it is just this energy of fear in the body that's been trapped there. That when you do have these triggers that have you like flaring up and like fight, flight, or freeze, again, we have a cycle, that you're like looking and then finding, because you're always going to find what you're looking for. And so if you're looking for a threat, you're going to find a threat. And so with the Princess of Wands and the Two of Swords, fear has been a block to your path, like time and time again. And we don't have to wonder about that. Part of what Spirit is saying is like, there is compassion here. You know, there's this way in which Spirit is saying, like, listen, this was because you went through how many wars, you know, how many battles. This didn't develop out of nowhere. And this trauma in the body, in the way of it's like adrenaline, because I can kind of like just feel it. It's like a rush, you know, that trauma in the body, like it had its purpose, you know. So there's this moment when, you know, when you have that rush of like anxiety or fear come up, or like phobic responses to like, you know, doing certain things, that the first thing that you're going to do is you're not going to fight with the feeling itself. You're going to say to the feeling, I accept you, because that's the part of you that needs a level of acceptance, you know, because it's saying something. So once you say to that feeling, like, I accept you, it takes some of the urgency and some of the panic out of the fact that you're even having these feelings to begin with. But Spirit is saying, so there's compassion, you know, built into the process, but that it has stopped you from proceeding on your inspiration and your dreams, that it has sort of confused your ability to even like notice what is there for you at any given time in the way of opportunities, based on like, you know, you're not even looking. It's like you don't even want to look, or you feel like, you know, there's nothing, like, I don't know where to look, I don't know where I'm going, I don't know what I want. A lot of that has to do with the fact that this is very fear-based. So fear-based thinking, it's going to shut you down, it's going to keep you in a loop. Part of it is your body and working it out of your body, and the other part of it is, you know, not fighting with yourself about it, but just acknowledging that the toll that it's taking in the way of pretty much everything. You know, I'm seeing that, and I'm hearing the words like fear-based. So let me go ahead and shuffle a little bit more, because you're meant for stability, you know, and you're meant for prosperity. And this is a mess in the way of really feeling like there's no way for you to get there. That there's just no way that this steel door that is between you and the life that you want will ever open. And that's this sort of like position of, what is that? It's more than despair, and I can't get the right word for it. Let's get some more cards. Let's get some solutions now that we've sort of identified what we already know. Let's go ahead and get some solutions. And what I said to Spirit is like, we want instructions, not like platitudes, or, you know, we want to actually know like steps that we can take that are really concrete to move us out of this. With the Chariot, I'm liking that. And the Four of Wands, I'm liking that too. Let me get more. I'm going to get a little bit more than that, actually. And I want to take this deck here. Because this, you know, the fact that your body's been stuck with so much of this, you know, it's like you've been, this is almost this moment where things are really bad and you promise they're going to get better and you feel like they're going to get better and you tell people like this is just a hard time and it's going to be better, and like but feeling stuck in the it's just like it's not you know that and so Spirit is basically saying that, you know, it's not like you haven't been trying. Spirit is very aware of the fact that you have put as much effort as you could possibly be put. Like I'm being shown you know, someone in a tornado trying to bring the lawn chairs in. And, you know, Spirit is saying, yeah, you gave it your all, but that was going to be a tornado no matter what. And the lawn chairs were doomed, you know, to begin with. You didn't fail bringing the lawn chairs in. You were just kind of like in a situation where you couldn't really win. And so to release that is to release your future in a sense. Because there's this feeling of like, because of the inadequacy around so many situations in your life that were like tornadoes and tsunamis, and basically when the external stuff in life was just going to drive you around, you know what I mean? But now that that's stopped, or sort of stopped, I wanted to see what's going on here in just a second with these other cards. Yeah. So bottom of the deck here is service to others. What is good for us in your work? So I really think that, you know, there's something to be said about taking it slow. You know, we want to be sweet about, we don't want to be yet another voice in your head that says you're supposed to be succeeding and you're not, you know, your goals are over there and you haven't been able to get past this point. That is just fueling the fire. It's fueling the inadequacy. So there's an invitation to just be, to allow yourself to just be instead of constantly be striving towards this idea of it. Spirit's saying, instead of like always being in a state of becoming, which is like moving towards something, you know, aiming at something, you know, even if it's in a more receptive way, it's like becoming is still sort of where you're not there yet. So Spirit says, instead of being constantly looking out at where you're going and where you want to be and like what the healing will lead to and where the opportunities might come in, but then feeling absolutely frozen when it comes to actually taking that first step. Spirit is basically saying that, you know, that was like really weird. I just felt the channel just kind of fell out. Let me see if I can get it back. Yeah, but Spirit is giving you credit. Spirit is saying, you know, right now we're like to confront this and to energize and to force yourself to like do things like, you know, the exposure therapy that is involved in sort of like overcoming this. First, we want to be really, really nice to you and not be part of those voices in your head that's saying you're doing something wrong. You know, the first thing we want to do is make sure that you know that like every baby step, like Spirit is showing me like a team of people, you know, and they're all like got clipboards and, you know, they all have, and they're like waiting to help, you know, and they're hoping that you begin the process. Man, this channel is rocky. Why is there so much opposition? Let me just sit here for a second. I keep on like getting knocked out of the, that's weird. That doesn't usually happen. I've like actually never had this happen. Because it's this very strange dance between what it means for you to be in a place of healing and forgiveness and allowing and compassion and letting your baby steps be celebrated. And so when I see like this team with clipboards, like they're all there waiting for you to waiting to help you. But what you don't realize is that every little tiny thing that you do, because they know what you've been through and they have a tremendous amount of compassion. It's like some Spirit is showing me somebody in like physical therapy has got to learn how to use you know, a spoon again for the first time, you know, under circumstances where there has been like, you know, a change to the body's ability to do it like the way that it once was. And so Spirit is saying like, you know, like when you're mad at yourself because you're like, why can't I, you know, use this spoon like I did, you know, before I got hit with 15 storms. Like there's somebody, you know, your guides are there with you and being like, no, like it's the tiny little things. It's the little changes where we are like so proud of your progress. And so to begin to make little, tiny, manageable changes and to be proud of yourself and to celebrate that, because you want to create a feedback loop that is rewarding. And so part of what it means to energize and confront and force yourself out this door and away from this fear is to actually take teeny tiny little steps that you can kind of count on yourself to become a habit. Because your path ahead, you know, it feels very thwarted by what, like, this feels bigger than you, you know, and I almost have to say that, like, it almost feels like a phobia, I'll be honest. And some of you may struggle with different phobias. And so what Spirit is saying is, like, you know, two things. One, nothing can block your path. And the other is, but it can certainly feel 100% that way. You know, you're called to take dominion over your life, and you're called to do this in a way that is creative. In Leo, you're meant to shine. And so part of what it means for you to, like, follow through on your inspiration and not be blocked is Spirit is saying, like, you don't believe that that this is where we want to do some work around, like valuing your, like this idea that, like, you know, you can have an idea and then be like, but I won't finish it, or like no one will listen, or you know, there's a story about there's a story that you've been telling yourself, you know, in response to trying to manage this fear that no one really loves you, no one really cares, no one's going to want to see it, no one's going to want to celebrate it, no one's really interested, you know, like all of this stuff around creating for not, you know, like creating for yourself is therapy, you know, but creating for others, and that's what you want to do, and you're meant to shine, and you're meant to be in this, like, Leo energy that is your path. But the lack of confidence here in relationship to, like, the approval of others, or the appreciation of others, and, like, let's not think that the appreciation of others is a small thing. When you create something with love and care and you put it into the world with a big, bright heart, when there's not someone to receive it, I mean, just think about a little kid who sits down with, like, a box of crayons and creates a beautiful picture. You know, if there's no one to give it to, there is this element of, like, I actually want to use the word devastation, you know, around times where you have, like, taken the crayons out, like, sat down, made this beautiful picture, and then given it to people, and then, like, they either, like, didn't put it on the, you know, didn't look at it, you know. And so Spirit is saying that's something to look at and deal with, but understand that your path is a path of glory. Your path is a path where your creation, whatever that potential is one of leadership, and is one that is going to, where you're allowed to shine. And also, like, you know, this idea that if you ever find yourself fighting this idea of, like, well, I don't want to, you know, I like, again, I hear this, like, little condemning voice, you know, along the lines of whatever that story is, little condemning voice that is saying, that, like, you know, not to seek attention. Like, you know, maybe when you were growing up, someone said that, you know, you just wanted attention, or you just need attention. Spirit is saying you're meant to have attention. You've always been meant to have attention. It's part of what you're supposed to do. So shutting yourself down around the idea that because, yeah, look at this. So Spirit is saying, like, when we're little and we do something and somebody shames us, that shame becomes part of our inner monologue later, so that we can avoid the mistake. And it's not a mistake, but it's like, this is like when you go to put something out there, and the part of you that says, like, you know, you're just, you know, people are just gonna think you're looking for attention. That's from when you were little, and some, like, dirtbag of a person, like, you know, didn't want to pay attention to, like, a beautiful child that had something to offer them, and therefore what that becomes the life mantra. Spirit is saying absolutely not. We're not going to let that win. You are meant to shine, and you deserve attention, absolutely. And if it takes some time to get the attention that you deserve, you know, there's a call to be, like, positive about your growth and expansion, and how, you know, what it means to step into this is the Six of Coins. This is the card of generosity, really. You know what it means. Spirit is saying, be generous, know your value, be generous with your creations, and understand that, like, part of the creative process is a learning and teaching process. You know, part of your creative process isn't meant to see the light of day until you've matured to a certain extent in what you're creating. And so there's this trial and error period that will often shut us down. And so Spirit says, you know, the fear of being ridiculed, the fear of being, you know, someone not seeing your vision correctly, you know, that fear of like taking that beautiful picture that you colored, handing it to someone and they like say, this is ugly, you know what I mean? Or they rip it up, which is like absolutely heartbreaking. Everybody needs somebody who is their cheerleader in some way or another. And so there's this way in which Spirit is saying, like, listen, we realize that you know, your parents like never really saw you and what you had to offer, you know, like I see parents that were more domineering or parents that were like absolutely absent, but no one in the way of like, well, this is a beautiful picture. You have such talent here. I really appreciate the work that you do. Like, it's amazing. Like everyone kind of needs that. But there's no demand around that, you know, when Spirit says like that, to sort of tap into the fact that what you create in the way of art is the same as like, it's a spiritual practice. It is magic. Creation and what you create of like nothing is absolutely your magic. And so Spirit says like, you know, be generous with yourself about this process and be generous with others about whether them not being able to see or appreciate it until it's really sort of like come into its right form, which means that there is a process here. And so Spirit invites you to begin to be like, to take a positive attitude about creating for the sake of creation. And having a generosity with yourself, and also putting it out there means, you know, having a generosity, you know, with others, with no expectation of return, with an understanding that when the return arrives, it's because you're out of the learning part of the process and into the teaching part of the process, and Spirit's plan is perfect. And Spirit's plan is for you to grow and expand and be appreciated, and to sort of like, you know, not let the way people respond initially shut you down. It's really important to sort of get past that first moment where you start to make something and you want to have some kind of a feedback, but it's not ready to sort of be released, and you know, people aren't really seeing where it's going, and so you know, the grandeur of what you're creating can often be missed in that way, and then the creation never gets made. And so Spirit is saying, you know, part of what it means to like get out of your way with this is anxiety about ridicule and being shamed, and like, you know, what it means to get your needs met in terms of attention but feeling undeserving. So there's a lot here that causes anxiety. Again, like so much of what you need to do, and this is just Spirit really coming through very strong. This is not going to cure everything. So, you know, this isn't saying like that it'll somehow take away, you know, what you're dealing with. But Spirit says like moving your body. Like it is like, I'm seeing the polar bear that was avoided a hunt and it's just like shaking off the stress. Spirit says, just shake like that for, you know, set a timer for 5 minutes and allow yourself to sort of shake like that, and then see how it affects absolutely everything else in your life. Because so much of the stuff that you're fighting where you're like, I can't beat this anxiety, part of it is that there's conflict there around, you know, really deep issues in terms of being hurt and valuing self and all of that. But the other part of it is releasing yourself from the stuff that is like extra and just literally lodged in the body that you can't think your way out of. And so Spirit says, you know, do that ecstatic dancing for 5 minutes every day. And when it comes to because you want to be seen and appreciated, and because part of what's in your way is all of the hiding. And that's not just in terms of, this doesn't just mean being an artist. It also means, you know, creating relationships, again, is part of what this creative process is. And so Spirit is saying that if you're not seeing results in terms of feedback or, you know, the opportunities to connect, and create in the different ways, then that's because you're still learning. And yeah, there's frustration in that. But there's something to this learning process that Spirit wants you to take basically like take the pressure off yourself a little bit. Release the valve, release valve on the expectations that you have to win right away, that it has to be perfect the first time you try, that you have to get there, you know, at a pace that would be approved of by your parents or something. You know, Spirit is basically saying that to take the pressure off your pacing, and allow yourself to just like begin to create, and the generosity with yourself in this creation and this creative process, and the generosity of others, which means trying to offer, you know, lower the stakes. And that, and when you look at everything around you, and when you see like what you're dealing with, and when you tell yourselves like, part of disempowering the fear is lowering the stakes in your mind. If I don't make a success of this career, I'm never going to be anything. That's creating really high stakes for yourself. Spirit says, instead of creating really high stakes for yourself that scare the crap out of you, what about like, if I can, you know, looking at it like, if I try this and it works out, it might lead me further. That's like a much lower stakes. It's a lot easier to attend to what you're attempting that way. So that's part of what it means to disempower the fear. Now, with the Chariot here, you know, this idea of moving out of, this is really just like, you know, this has both been a healing process for you, but you've grown out of it. You know, there was a point in time where this was needed for you to heal. You needed to be in this place of not going out and like, this card really speaks of like not being able to see the opportunities, and not being able to see the gifts that Spirit has for you. And for a while, it was really important for you to stay inside. It was really important for you to hermit. It was really important for you to allow yourself to experience peace. It might have been like the first time you've experienced peace ever. And so now this idea that, and it's weird, Spirit's saying for so many of you, peace now just lives inside. And when you go outside, there's no peace, because this association is peace is the inside. And then, you know, discomfort and effort and, you know, agitation is the outside. But Spirit says, like, what I have to offer you requires you interact with the world. Because you can only get so far. Spirit's like, I can only give you so much from your living room. And you can only see, and you don't see what you want, and you don't see why it would be worth going. And that's this card right here. So, and this is what it means for you to grow out of this space, is to first sort of say, like, I don't see what I want, and I don't see where I'm going, because it's not in my living room, and I'm sitting in my living room, and I need to be out there to begin to have this interaction. And Spirit's saying like that, Spirit's like, I will meet you there. So baby steps, because this is hard. Celebrate the small victories, because what created a system of fear, a fear-based orientation towards life, what created a fear-based orientation towards life that has locked you in, it's not insignificant. But Spirit says, you know, so it's step by step. Everything that you do towards this idea of moving out of your comfort zone, Spirit is going to like really be like the wind in your sails, that like once you sort of like enter that harbor, Spirit's going to come in and be that wind in your sails, and you're going to be moving in this direction of what it is that Spirit wants to offer you. And I want to say in the way of partnership, but with the Six of Cups, this is friends. This is what it feels like to play with others, you know, the nostalgia of like being little and in a group and having fun and having connection and having that third space, not work, you know, and like not home, but that third space where you go and commune, and also create with others and community. Like there's so much in this card. Pleasure. You know, everything from partnership to your place in the world and finding it. So Spirit's saying, like, you know, you can't see it from the living room, but disempowering the fear that tells you the inside is safe and comfortable, the inside is peace, and outside is anxiety and bad things can happen to me. Spirit wants you to change that story to that of, with the trust of a child, fun, romance, and making art, and do it dramatically, the creation of, the gaining of respect for or from things brought to life or light. This is what Spirit wants to offer you. This is that's what we were just kind of talking about with the Six of Cups. So when you begin, part of what it means to begin to take these baby steps outside and into the world and try to, a lot of people are like, I don't know how to break in. I don't know how to get in. Do I volunteer? You know, do I go to one of those things that I go to and then I run home? Because, you know, it's like so far out of like, you know, feeling like someplace that feels good for you to like be your most expressive. Like Spirit is saying that to begin to try and remember what it was to look at the world from the eyes of childhood, when there weren't any expectations about what it was to be like. When your mom, you know, put you in afternoon camp, like maybe you probably didn't want to leave the house. This is really good. So Spirit is showing me something awesome. With the eyes of a child, you know, like little kids, like every single morning they're supposed to go to school, and they go to school and they love their teacher and they have so much fun. But getting them out the door, or, you know, especially when they're really little, like getting them to actually go to camp, even though they have the best time ever, and even though there's so much enrichment and they get a lot out of it and there's so many opportunities. I'm hearing someone be like, I hated camp. But Spirit is saying, like, you know, no one wants to, when you're little, you never want to leave the house when you're little. When you're tiny, you never want to be away from your mom. You never want to be away from that comfort zone. So it'd be so hard on yourself. This is like, you know, like what you've been stripped down to because of all the trauma. And now it's this feeling of like, I don't want to leave the house without my mom on an unconscious level. But so Spirit is saying, you know, to first understand that, you know, you want to be that parent for yourself. And when you're like, I don't want to go to camp, you want to be like, listen, I know you don't want to go to the event because it's probably something that you're going to want to leave immediately. But every time that you know, sometimes you have a bad day at camp, but you also sometimes have an amazing day at camp. So why don't we just go and try? Why don't we just do it? And so there's this way in which Spirit says fun, romance, and making art. Make your life an art form, and attend to it from this position that says, I don't know what I'm going to encounter out there, but I'm going to let Spirit lead me, and wherever I'm going, I'm going to be looking for something to be in awe of. I'm going to be looking for what is the gift in this. And if you don't find it, you know, you might just find something to laugh at, honestly. You know, maybe the gift in this is humor that you're bringing back home, you know, in the way of a story where you saw yourself, you know, in a position and characterized in a certain way, and it was amusing. Maybe it wasn't like the place that you want to like spend your Saturdays, but it was amusing. And so Spirit says, like, you know, rather than and again, lower the stakes on what it means to re-enter the world. To do it dramatically just means like, don't shut yourself down. Don't be, you know, to actually like know that this time you're going to re-enter the world from a place of confidence and being your authentic self, because only in that authenticity will your actual social needs be seen and met. You know, if you show up, as, you know, one character that is like, wins everything is awesome, there's never any problems, like, you know, is wearing like exactly what is, you know, on trend or whatever. Spirit is saying, basically, when you show up as yourself, the people who are meant to love you can see you. When you show up guarded, you know, with 15 layers of how you want to be perceived, time and time again, you're going to find that there's like you're going to be like, I don't know, like this world, no one seems to like me. Spirit says everybody, that there's a sifting system. People who are, you know, not in alignment may dislike you immediately, especially if you're a bright light as you walk in the room. But if you walk in the room authentically and in a confidence that says, if I'm 100% being me, then the one person who is meant to love that 100% me is going to notice that that's a lovable thing, that 100% me. And the people who don't are just going to be distractions that are expecting or wanting me to play a role for them. And I don't want to do that, so I'm not going to start there. And so the creation of the gaining of respect for or from and things brought to life or life, part of it is showing up and showing up authentically. And the other part of it is understanding that it's a process and understanding that you're not alone in this process. So much of this fear comes from a feeling of failure, that everybody else is getting this right and doing this right and that you're not. Couple of things Spirit wants you to know. One, we are the loneliest this world has ever been as a culture and as a people, like far and wide. That you are in no way the only person trying to find your place in a world that is in upheaval. That you are going through a re-entry process that is that everyone's going through, and they don't understand why, you know, it seems safe inside and anxious outside. But that's part of this conditioning that happened, you know, for a number of years. And so you're not alone in this. And to take the pressure off yourself. And, you know, part of disempowering that fear is to not get mad that it's there in the first place, but to say, listen, this is a process of reintegrating into a world that has changed, that nobody really recognizes, and nor does anybody recognize the selves that they were before the world changed. And we're all looking for a third space that doesn't exist, and it makes us all feel really unsettled about what it is to connect and whether we're capable of it. But everyone's capable of connecting, and this is a process, and getting out of your own way, part of it is just knowing that you're not the problem. Everyone's got such high stakes right now and trying to find community, that we're all having a hard time just showing up authentically, because it's high stakes, because the need feels really great. And so Spirit is saying, like, lower the stakes, go, you know, to a certain extent, you know, taking those baby steps is like remembering, like, you know, the little kid that like never wants to leave mom, but like as soon as you know, drop them off at the birthday party, after 10 minutes, the crying stops and it's the time of your life. So like, understand that there's this interplay where you don't have to want to go in order to end up enjoying it. So Spirit is saying, like, you know, because when you do that, when you show up, whether it's with stuff that you're creating or whether it's with yourself wanting to make and create relationships, Spirit's saying, I'm going to meet you halfway. You know, it is a process. Take the baby steps. Disempower the fear by way of, first, you know, I'm going to see if I can just sort of sum it up, but disempower the fear by way of, you know, service to others. What is good for us and your work is like understanding that, like, everyone's going through this, and, you know, one of the first things that you can do is sort of like, you know that like when you try to make a friend and you're sort of talking to someone and you're looking at them and you're like wondering if they like you, Spirit's saying, I want you to sort of change your perspective on that a little bit and look at them and say, man, making friends is really hard for everybody. You know, think about it from not like, does this person like me, but do I like this person? And is this person nervous about whether or not they like, you know, like, and take the fear out of it for both of you by having a little bit of compassion for both of you in the process, and knowing that somebody who you meet for the first time might not be that cool like right away, neither may you. You know, like showing up, let's see, immediately the way you project yourself, do it on your own. Yeah, so Spirit is saying, don't be so sure of your snap decisions. You know, even if you have to go to yoga 15 times before you have like one conversation, Spirit is saying that this is being generous with yourself and others by just showing up. And when you meet someone, instead of having this immediate like, we're not going to get along, you know, think about the fact that they might be showing up nervous and like freaking out and like really having a hard time too, and really having trouble like, you know, presenting their authentic self, and that it might take a little coaxing. And so like there's this openness that Spirit wants you to have from the heart space about this process. And that can be the same can be said about showing work. You know, is somebody else going to like what I made? You know, does your, like, this is a good example for something like TikTok, right? Or whatever, you know, wherever your social media platform is that you make things. You know, if you make something and it doesn't get any views and like it doesn't do too well, and you're like, you know, you know, why is this, you know, something that, you know, happens to me? Like, no one's ever going to care what I do because I do it and then nothing happens. Spirit is asking you, like, how many times do you see someone's video and notice that like they did a pretty good job? Like, it may not have been your favorite video ever, but giving that generosity, just giving them a like, you see there's only 2 likes and you're like, you know what? I see you made the effort. I want somebody else to see that I make it an effort. This may not be, you know, something that goes viral because I'm still in this learning process part of it, but let's like Spirit is saying, you know, begin with that generosity towards others. And you'll sort of understand. Spirit's saying, like, this changes your orientation to an orientation of gratitude. You know, when you stop to have gratitude for somebody else who's in their learning process, and maybe it's not perfect, but giving them a like for the effort, because you understand that now we're in an economy where there doesn't have to be scarcity of attention. You know, like that's bringing like the economy of exchange in where it doesn't need to be. And that Spirit's saying, like, when you let other people, you know, be in their learning process with what they're creating, you also are like showing yourself that you're allowing yourself to be there too. And the more people that you interact with who are in the learning phase, the more you all sort of grow together, and you're not comparing yourself to people who know how to do 15 takes or something or whatever else it is. And so Spirit is saying that, like, yeah, in terms of steps, baby steps, don't be hard on yourself, you know, accept that this is really, really difficult and that the storms are really traumatizing, and that's why, you know, there's so much in the body. Work with the body. It's essential, you know, like, I keep on hearing ecstatic dance, but like, you know, something like that where yeah, Spirit says just try it. 5 minutes a day. It's not exercise. It's like literally like shaking the fear out of your body as best as you can. And then from there, everything else that we kind of discussed in the way of, you know, taking that step with your inspiration, whether it's an inspiration to go out and meet people and create relationships, or an inspiration to create something and put it before the world, to take that step and to begin to do this, that this is your path. You're meant to get attention. Don't talk yourself out of getting attention. And if you're afraid of negative tension, Spirit says, like, I'm there for you. Where that, like, this is where we always have to be able to take the risks, or there's only ever going to be, it's too scary to go outside. Let yourself be in a learning process. Let yourself put stuff out there that's not perfect. Let yourself put yourself out there when you're not perfect. Be imperfect in your authenticity, and see how wonderful it is for everybody in the room to just take a breath. You know, like, when you give yourself permission to be authentic, it gives everybody else permission too. You don't have to want to go to end up loving wherever you end up going. So this is, I'm trying to see if there's anything else that wants to come through. I'm going to grab a couple more of these and then we will end it there. This is a process. Let it be a process where you lower the stakes so that it doesn't feel so overwhelming to take the first step. Here we go. Bottom of the deck energy, we have emergence. Like, what does it mean for you to emerge from this place? You've transformed in the cocoon for so long. So what does it mean to emerge out of the cocoon? And I always read these. The frequency of emergence invites us to approach our reality with a childlike attitude of innocence and wonderment, and to watch and celebrate the beauty that unfolds from that place. So, you know, you're emerging, you know, allow this alchemy of, and this is an alchemy of disempowering the fear. You know, that this is basically I'll read it. The frequency of alchemy activates our magical ability and remembrance of the magic that we all hold inside. You know, so this is everything from, you know, beginning to allow yourself to create openly and to put what you create out there. It's also part of what it means to begin to create relationships, like, you know, the alchemy of the process of, yeah, like, it's just going to be a mixed bag. You know, don't expect it to feel amazing because you're making something with lots of different components and you're working with yourself in a compassionate way. The tantric journey, that's an interesting card to come out here. I'm going to read this. The frequency of tantric journey helps us to unlock the hidden knowledge and wisdom that we intrinsically hold about how to reach a state of wholeness and completion through our sensual experiences with ourselves and with another. This is Spirit's way of coming in and saying you that there's only so much learning you can do by yourself. And there's a lot of frustration around, like, what it means to find someone else. It's hard, you know. I'm just like leaning in to see if I can sort of get Spirit saying, you know, love is always a miracle. Every single time, love is a miracle. It's never 5 steps and then you get there. It's never like if you know, get to a certain number on the scale or you know, begin to, then you can have it, but you can't. It's always some miraculous event of 2 people coming together and like actually clicking. And Spirit saying it's always a miracle. I mean, there are you'll see these examples of people who cannot like exist outside of a codependent relationship. That's not a miracle. But actual relationships, like, that's always a miracle. So it's like basically saying, you know, you need other people. You need to be in this process of revealing yourself, you know, of this emergence. And part of that is understanding that spirits, there needs to be a little bit of faith in the mix, a little bit of hope and faith in the mix, that, you know, the alchemy, like of what ends up being what you create of your social life, what ends up being of what you create of like what that authentic self ends up expressing as, and that, you know, alchemy of what it is that you create that others are then able to interact with you through. All of it requires a little bit of hope and a little bit of faith, that the miracle of, you know, having that click, you know, making that connection, like that it can even, you know, begin to happen. Alchemy and synergy are really interesting energies that tell me that part of what it means to disempower the fear is to understand that the process is a mixed bag. Let me read this. The frequency of synergy supports our allowance and acceptance of not so obvious, never seen before combinations and unions that result in new ways of functioning, working, thinking, relating, loving, and being. It reminds us to embrace the unfamiliar so that the new yet exciting concoctions can give birth to a new reality. You know, you might be comparing your social skills to the social skills that you had before the pandemic. And you may be entering social environments, you know, with an expectation that everyone, and that, yeah, so Spirit is saying what used to be easy for everyone is now, like, because so many people changed in this space, like we're all kind of very much like in a similar, not just this collective, everyone's trying to figure out their new place in a new world that's like in the process of becoming all of those things. And so Spirit's saying, you know, don't expect yourself to present in the same way, and don't expect people to respond in the same way. Don't expect people to present in the same way, and don't expect people to know how Spirit says don't expect people to know the rules of engagement, because the rules of engagement have changed and absolutely everybody is wondering how to approach and interact. And so, yeah, I just, like, I'm taking this, like, breath out, you know, law of attraction and universal wisdom, and Libra says, you know, begin to let yourself, yeah, Spirit's saying, you know, begin to understand that you want this. You already know that you want it. Let yourself want this. Know that there's a whole process involved in the baby steps and in the healing, and the alchemy, of finding your way in a new world. Like, you know, it's take the high stakes out of it, take the judgmental voice out of it, shake as much of that trauma out of your body as you can, and everything else. Spirit is saying it's important to know that, like, showing up imperfectly, showing up awkward, that's the fastest track to love that, like, there ever is. And so, yeah, this is how we, you know, come to this place of creating that third space that doesn't yet exist. And so I think that's what Spirit wants to come through with in terms of disempowering fear. And this was very much, you know, the channel that came through was very much like sort of about putting yourself out there and about leaving the house. So whatever this collective that I'm dealing with is, we're all kind of, this is a struggle, but it's not a struggle that you're having alone. It's a struggle that is pretty, at this point, it's almost ubiquitous. So I hope that was helpful, and I will see you all again soon. It was an honor to read for you.